Hello. If you've been watching my videos of late, you'll realise that I'm very interested in self-knowledge and self-understanding. And in this particular video, I'd like to talk about what I call our higher self. Anthony Robbins calls this the giant within. The Hindus call it the Atman. Really religious Christians call it Christ consciousness. What is this higher self within us? Well, it's certainly not our personality. That's a facade. That's something we've learned to put forward over the years, generally to protect our ego. The real self, I guess you could call it the soul or the spirit within, is something far, far greater than that. And we all have it. And we can all reach it or have it meld into our lives. But it does take some effort. And the first thing is to be willing to do it. The ego, the self-image, doesn't like that. It feels it's being threatened because the ego is something we've built up over our lifetime since we were tiny to protect, really, our emotional self, which is always reflected in the sensations of our body. How can we develop or come to know our higher self? Well, there are certain ways in which you can do it. One way is to develop a new sense. And how it happened to me many years ago is a friend of mine observed that I like to write poetry. And he said, you know, Tom, people who like to write poetry are sensitives. And I said, well, what's a sensitive? He said, well, people who feel life pretty well. And he said, have you ever tried automatic writing? And of course, I had no idea what he was talking about. But automatic writing can be developed by virtually anyone. And the way to do it is this. You write a question on a piece of paper with your dominant hand, which is usually the right hand in most people. And then with a pen in your left hand, you prepare yourself for an answer. If no answer comes, no answer writes itself through the left hand, then after, say, maybe 10, 20 seconds, you can just write no response. Do it with your left hand. Ask a question again with your right hand, writing it out. Wait for the response with your left hand. If no response, just write no response. And on the first session, and I suggest no more than, say, quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, if there is no response, put it aside. But don't give up on it, because you're already sending a message to your subconscious mind that you want an answer to come through your left hand or your non-dominant hand. A woman named Lucia Capioni, I think that's her name, something like that, wrote a whole book on this subject, and it definitely works. So, you just persevere. Write a statement. I am good at something or other. And you might find that your non-dominant hand will eventually respond, and it might say something like, who do you think you're kidding? Right? So straight away, you can see there is a conflict or a rebuttal of what you've just said. Your subconscious mind doesn't believe what your conscious mind is trying to believe. Keep this up for some time, and after a while you'll be able to find that you'll get answers through your left hand. These are coming from your deep unconscious. Now, here's the bit that's a bit boggling for a lot of people. We are linked to everything in the universe. We're linked through it, through our deep subconscious mind. If you can imagine, we've got around us porous membranes which seep out into the universe and allow the universe to seep into us. It'll give you an idea. An analogy I often use is that of icebergs. Icebergs floating in the sea. Now, if you look at an iceberg floating in the sea, and there's a number of them, all you can see is the tops. Most of the iceberg, as they say, is about 88% is under the water. If your consciousness is the top of the iceberg, you look across at other icebergs and they seem to be separate from you. And you might say, yes, they are separate from me. Icebergs are floating way apart from me. Underneath the iceberg, the 88% is your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind, 88%. Whether that's the real amount, I don't know, but using the analogy of an iceberg, it is. And the icebergs still seem to be apart. But are they really? Think about it. What's an iceberg made of? Water. The iceberg above the water, the iceberg below the water is made of water and it's floating in water. All are linked. And the only difference is the vibration at which the water is vibrating and the ice is vibrating. Ice being slower than water, it's taken on solidity and it looks different. Now, if you can use this analogy for human beings and put the tip of the iceberg as our conscious mind and the underneath as our personal subconscious, that conditioning we put into ourselves, and we're linked through the water to every other thing. Not only are we linked to what is now, but what was in the past and is in the future, because there is only one real moment. And that moment is now. We live in the now. People say we move into the future. Maybe. I suspect we live in the now and the future moves through us. But we're getting into real philosophical stuff here. You have a higher self. You can develop that higher self until it rules you rather than your ego ruling you. And that, I believe, is what the main purpose of our life on planet Earth